Hey everyone, Mike here with another Helmed Tower video. Gonna be talking about a game I got to play in the beta for, that is Terminull Brigade. It was actually the final beta for this because it is coming out July 29th. The beta was a little confusing admittedly, so I did not get to play as much as I would have liked to, but I'll get more into that I guess later. But you know, it was pretty interesting. So again, these will be pretty early impressions, and I definitely still have a lot of questions about the game. And maybe, you know, hey, maybe there are people out there who got to play way more of the beta. There were also earlier betas before this, and this is the only one I got into. So again, I'm kind of just working with what I got here for this video. But hey, if you played in previous ones and maybe I bring up something here in the video that I get wrong or have questions about, and maybe it was kind of more gleaned on in other betas and things you had access to in different versions of the game or whatever, feel free to leave in the comments below. This is because when it's going to be. And I think, you know, the game again is only on a few weeks, so we'll probably learn a lot about it pretty soon once it's fully out. But yeah, this is, if you hadn't heard of it before, it is a free-to-play roguelite hero shooter. That's kind of the way I would describe it, because you basically have these hero characters, each have their own individual skills and abilities, kind of personalities and things like that going on, and you can kind of take them and go on a run of a roguelite where you're running through this kind of like futuristic cyberpunk city or this kind of like wasteland zone. These are kind of the two major zones that were at least just in the beta. I think there's going to be hopefully more in the full version of the game. You know, you'll run into these arenas and they'll just be filled with enemies you got to take down, and you'll defeat the rooms of enemies, and then you'll get to the end, and at the end there'll be different upgrades you can choose from. There'll be passive upgrades, different kinds of relics and pieces of gear, or like other kinds of things like that. And that would be kind of the run. You just kind of keep progressing through these floors and clearing enemies, and then there'll be boss rooms and things like that as well. And that's kind of what you're doing. So it's pretty interesting because I've never really feel like I've seen a free-to-play roguelite. I've definitely seen like free-to-play games or live service games have roguelite modes, right? Where they kind of have like a mode that kind of evokes that roguelite nature, and you're picking different abilities, and so you can have this your own unique runs and things like that. But this is kind of fully embracing it because that is kind of the core of what you're doing. Again, I had a little bit of confusion in how they rolled out this beta, because initially it seemed like there were basically these two-hour windows on either a Thursday or Friday evening where you could play. So that's kind of what I originally thought. So I jumped in and played a couple out those kind of first 2 hours on Thursday night, and then thought that was it. But then I checked again in the Discord, and then they kind of clarified, like, oh no, this will just be open for throughout these periods, and then actually they extended it into the weekend. So again, I ended up kind of being confused by that, and then so I did end up getting to play a little bit more later in the weekend. Again, I don't remember my final hour count, but I would say maybe like 6 to 8 hours in that range somewhere, maybe is what I played total. So a little confused by that, so I didn't get to play as much as I'd like. So there may be things that I'm just, you know, did not get to in that brief period. The games will be out in a few weeks, so we'll figure it out. I did enjoy everything I kind of played in here. Like the gunplay feels pretty good. It's all, you know, you can see I've already seen it by now. It's like a third person kind of shooter, and you know, the abilities, the different characters feel different enough. Like kind of the initial character I played as was this lady who could like launch into the air, and she could fly above everything. Then she kind of had this like tracer kind of laser beam gun that would kind of immediately lock onto enemies as soon as you get near them. And you could kind of like group up enemies with some of her abilities. Like she shot this like energy ring that like sucked enemies into a little area. And you can use her other area, maybe this like black hole where when you damage it with your laser gun, you would like put the little black hole onto an enemy, and you would hit it with the gun and it would expand, and then it would chain like damage to other enemies around it. So it was a fun little loop there with her. And of course she could like fly up into the sky, which like she had like kind of, I feel like the most mobility out of the characters I tried out. So she felt really fun to play. And then I unlocked a later character who was all melee focused. So she had like sword slashes, and she was dashing around slicing dudes, and she could shoot these little sword blasts and stuff. And that was pretty fun too. So they felt different enough, right, where they had different play styles you could kind of play into, and then that also then feeded into like the roguelite nature where you're getting these different abilities and passive upgrades. And I think that's where I think the game really shined for me, were in those moments of discovery with those weird little kind of different roguelite abilities I could apply to my character and then build into a play style that worked for them. And that was pretty fun, where, you know, there was set of abilities were like tied to like this like character in universe, so to speak, that you would choose from. So there was like an ice character, and all of the abilities you could get from him were like related to ice based attacks and things like that. But then there was also like an electric one, and that would give you like electric abilities, so you could like chain lightning. And I had an ability where every time I reloaded, it would send like a lightning bolt down onto an enemy nearby me. So that was fun, because you're just, you know, always shooting and constantly reloading with how many enemies are. So you're just seeing like bolts of lightning like come down from the sky everywhere, and that was pretty fun. I had like another set of buffs that were interesting, because it was based on like gold and like the money you were accruing, because, you know, as again, you're getting kind of gold and currency to like buy the upgrades and stuff as you're going through the environments. So it would be like a thing where it's like, oh, your damage scales off of how much gold you currently have, or if you hit this certain limit of gold, you'll like get like a big buff. So it was like kind of managing, like keeping how much money you had to like keep your buffs and all those kind of things going. And then also managing like these other like relics I would find, where if you kind of would find named enemies randomly through some of these arenas you were fighting, through the floors you were fighting in, and they would drop like a relic, and you could equip them. And then there were different types of relics, and they would have like their own set bonuses, and those seemed like the really powerful in the what they could give you, because they would kind of like buff your stats quite a lot. So it seemed like looking for the right relics and building into one of the particular kind of play styles could get you really powerful really fast. So that was really fun and satisfying to figure out on the moment-to-moment runs. But I will say, like, I think the biggest thing that was a bummer to me was just how kind of small some of the kind of environments and randomized areas felt, arenas, because it really just felt like an arena to just murder dudes, or like one room that I could just murder dudes as quickly as possible and then move on to the next. I don't think I needed like it to suddenly become this massive, expansive open world zone by any means. But, you know, something I like in a lot of other roguelites is like, you know, there's like a little secret room that's in this area, or like a secret path I kind of kind of stumbled into, and oh, there's like a cool chest or like a challenge little mini event that I could kind of participate in, or like some kind of secret shop that would just appear in the zone, and it could give you like, you know, some kind of advantage sort of buff or like thing you could like acquire on your run to kind of give you different like positives and negatives. And there's not really a ton of that in here. A lot of them, there were like a couple things that are like kind of close to that, but it would ultimately just be like this separate doorway that you could take at the end of a room, where it'd be like, oh, this little portal opened up towards the door to the exit of this arena, and I could take that path, but it would still just be going into a room that's full of a bunch of enemies that I had to kill super quick. And that was kind of it. So I was kind of hoping for like more things like that in a roguelike nature. And who knows, maybe there is stuff like that in the game and I just didn't see it yet. Because again, a big thing that seemed like that was a big aspect of this game was like, it has kind of like world tiering, which, you know, I guess Destiny 2 is going to have soon. And then stuff like Diablo, I know, has that as well. I'm sure there's other games, but those are the ones I know the most. But basically, when you clear kind of a floor or a run in the game, you would, on a certain difficulty tier, you would then be able to advance into the next one, and, you know, the enemies would get harder, but you would also get like better rewards. And I think I got up to like tier 5 or 6 and started seeing like new types of currencies to earn and things like that. So maybe that comes with like new challenges and things unlocking in the actual runs themselves. So didn't get to see as much of that as I would hope, but maybe that stuff is there, or maybe will be with this full release. Who knows? I would like to see just more of that in general in the game. So I hope that's something they're thinking about adding in the future, or is already in the works. What else? You know, again, one other big aspect, and I'm sure a lot of people will have questions about this, and we'll know soon enough, because again, the game is releasing, and that is, it is going to be a free-to-play game. I definitely saw things that directly linked to like, oh, this is how there are things to buy. There's clearly a thing that was a premium currency. I hovered a high little thing over and said, hey, this is a premium currency you can use in the shop. There wasn't like a shop tab I could see directly, but, you know, it was clearly there and I could see it. There was like a tab that was also just labeled season, and it was called Season 0, and it was referring to like one of the characters that you could unlock through the season. And then it also had like some kind of skin, so I'm guessing there's going to be some kind of battle pass style thing in this game for sure. that you'll be able to buy and I guess unlock that character and like skins for other characters and stuff like that. And of course like a cosmetic shop and stuff like that. But I did see other things, like there were definitely like, you know, revive tokens, like when you get knocked down and you could instantly revive, but it seemed like you had a limited number of those. So I'm wondering if you can just kind of buy those. And so we'll see like if they'll have like stuff like that as well, like more conveniency thing. Well, again, I don't know. Clearly there will be some stuff like that because it is a free-to-play game. So we'll just have to see how much of it is there and if it's kind of egregious or not. I think that'll vary from your kind of own feelings on how you like to play free-to-play games or games that have those like kind of free-to-play models. But yeah, will be really interesting to see that. And just like, you know, a larger question for the game. Again, this is probably something that wasn't really going to be fully answered in the beta regardless, but just kind of, you know, having those long-term goals, because that's like what I at least look for in these kinds of games, because I'm kind of more from like liking stuff like Destiny and MMOs and things like that. So kind of hoping to see like what is like the end game essentially for this game, right? I had fun with the running around and doing the roguelite runs, but I can only do so much of that up to a point, right? And like hopefully I'm hoping there's, you know, more challenging or more interesting other activities and things to do like that, like kind of play into this stuff later in the game, like, you know, maybe it's like bosses or like higher tier bosses or things like that. And like what is that kind of, what am I working towards for that stuff? Like more interesting upgrades or things you can do with your characters. I don't really know. So that's like a big question I have too, is like what is kind of the chase and sort of the end game, I guess, so to speak. Like what am I working towards in this game? Because that was like not really immediately apparent either, kind of in the beta here. So those are definitely some of the bigger questions I have coming out of this. But I will say, like, from a baseline, it's a pretty fun game. It feels good to play. There's definitely some little technical things I think I can work out, because I was definitely having a lot of little stuttering and hitches here or there throughout the play. I'm sure you've probably already seen that in the footage plenty of times now. And I will say I don't have the most powerful PC in the world, but I even like bumped down my visual settings to see how that would adjust in that, and then it was still just kind of hitching. I've seen other people in the Discord make similar claims, and they have much more powerful PCs than I do, and that was happening. So that just seemed like a thing that was kind of in the game, and maybe it's hopefully just the nature of it being a beta and an early version of this game, and hopefully something they can kind of, you know, fix out for the final release. So we'll see here in a few weeks. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Terminull Brigade. You know, overall, I had a fun time with it. Interesting concept to be like this kind of free-to-play model with a roguelite. So I'll be really curious to see how people take to it. I've not really seen a lot of buzz about it, so it seems like it'll be kind of, you know, maybe a more niche title in the free-to-play world, but there's nothing wrong with that. I think it could find an audience still potentially. But I'm really curious, like, if there's other plans for like a rollout and terms of other news and information of like this, because right now it's just slated for Steam, but I don't know if it's going to come to consoles or it's going to be on even mobile. I could see it being a mobile game because it has a little bit of that vibe, and like, again, I don't have any issues with that, but I know some other folks might not be into that. But, you know, I hope it comes to console, because that's personally where I prefer to play games, and I think it would play totally fine there. So we'll just have to see if they do that. But, you know, we'll just have to wait and see. That's kind of where we're at with this one. I probably will do like some kind of follow-up video once the game is out, and I can really sink a little bit more time into it. But that, you know, that'll probably be not right at launch, but maybe a few weeks after, because there's a lot of stuff coming up soon here that I'm hoping to cover, because I know, again, there's a Destiny expansion coming out. It's been a while, especially since I've talked about Destiny here on the channel, but I definitely am looking forward to checking out Edge of Fate, and that's kind of frankly what I was waiting for. I just preferred to have it release and then talk about it that way and all that stuff. And then also, I know there's rumblings of another game I recently covered on the channel, Blue Protocol Star Resonance, is also going to be having hopefully its first global worldwide beta, and I'm hoping to get into that and check that game out, because it's one I've been really interested in for a while. I've been really wanting like a new MMO game to play, and that one has a lot of potential, so I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, anyway, those are, you know, that's just general channel update for you there. I guess at the end here, this Terminull Brigade video. But, you know, I'm looking forward to this one. I'm going to check out it more once it's out, and I'll have a follow-up video. If you played in the beta or have plans to check this out, maybe let me know in the comments what you're thinking, if you're more interested in it or not. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.